Welcome back. According to the United Nations Committee on Human Rights, British libel laws are a problem in that they severely restrict the discussion of matters of public interest. That may come as a bit of a surprise, since the UK is famous for a tabloid newspaper culture that takes absolutely no prisoners when it comes to skewering the rich and famous. However, the way the libel laws are written makes Britain one of the best places to launch a lawsuit. The Listening Post's Meenakshi Ravi now from London, the libel capital of the world.
The sights, the culture, the traditions. Each year, London attracts over 25 million tourists who come to soak up the history and enjoy the sights of Britain's capital. But over the last few years, a new group of tourists has been making its way to London.
We're seeing celebrities jet in, we're seeing oil barons, we're seeing people from the Middle East, we're seeing arms dealers.
It's not necessarily London's many attractions that are drawing these wealthy global travellers to the city. One of London's major draws for these tourists is the British legal system, specifically its libel laws.
People jet in from all over the world to launder their reputations in Court 13 at the Royal Courts of Justice in London, and they do it because our laws are peculiarly claimant-friendly. So if you want to bring a libel action against somebody, then London is the place to do it.
In the United States, for example, the First Amendment guaranteeing freedom of speech essentially puts the onus on the person bringing the libel allegation to prove that what was said about them is untrue. Quite simply, it's easier to win a libel case in England than it is in the United States.
Actor turned Governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger, was one of the first to recognize that. In 1990, he sued Wendy Lee, the author of an unauthorized biography. He lost the case, but kicked off a trend that has since become increasingly common. In 1997, Russian billionaire Boris Berezovsky sued US magazine Forbes for portraying him as a crook. After a 7-year battle in British courts, the parties chose to settle. In 2005, film director Roman Polanski won a libel suit against Vanity Fair magazine for a 2002 article containing defamatory claims about his sexual conduct. The series of libel cases has had a chilling effect on publishers and media houses. In 2004, Craig Unger's book, House of Bush, House of South, had its British publication delayed after publisher Random House got cold feet and dropped the book. They said UK libel laws and legal processes are stifling legitimate and responsible freedom of speech.
And this was at a time when Saudis were suing a lot of authors in the United Kingdom. So it has been widely speculated that that's why the book was dropped. I was fortunate in that the book was picked up and published by Gibson Square Press, and I was never sued.
Unger was lucky he wasn't up against the serial litigator.
Khalid bin Mahfouz is a Gulf billionaire who has sued on a number of occasions in London, and he sued Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld for her book.
The book in question was called Funding Evil, in which author Rachel Ehrenfeld wrote that Khalid bin Mahfouz was involved in funding Hamas and Al-Qaeda.
The allegation was published in a book published in the United States of America, which was only available in England via internet purchase. However, the litigant sued in the English courts because he knew that English libel law would be more likely to make a ruling in his favour.
Khalid bin Mahfouz won his case, sort of. The English court said Rachel Ehrenfeld had to pay him the equivalent of $60,000. But that never happened because the New York State Legislature immediately passed a new landmark law, specifically with this case in mind. The Libel Terrorism Protection Act, which is also known as Rachel's Law, helped get the America-based author off the hook.
The US Libel Terrorism Protection Act is intended to ensure that an American journalist or academic who publishes allegations against an individual and is sued in a non-US court cannot have that legal action enforced against them in the United States.
There's recently been passed a law in America directly aimed at British libel law, which says that British libel law is so antipathetic to the guarantees of free speech and the constitutional protections for speech in America that it should not be enforced. Any judgment of the English court should be ignored in America, and that's a pretty parlous state for British libel courts to have reached.
But the US Libel Terrorism Protection Act is in force only in New York. There is a similar federal law yet to come into effect. For the defendants in the British courts, it's not the damages awarded by the judges that are crippling. It's the cost of the legal battle.
the fees often dwarf the size of the damages. So you could be looking at a publisher taking £1 million hit overall with legal fees for a payout that might only be £100,000 or £200,000 to the claimant. So if you want to really punish a publisher and hit them hard in the pocket, then the High Court in London is a good place to do it.
As a consequence, we're seeing cases being settled where people would otherwise have to spend £400,000 or £500,000 just on defending the case. And it's just not economically viable, even for large media organisations, to spend that kind of money justifying the truth of the articles.
The people doing the suing know that, and until the UK changes its libel laws, big money libel tourists will keep coming to London just to take advantage of what, for them, is a friendly legal landscape.
More Global Village Voices now on Britain, its libel laws, and whether they're in the public interest.
Among the most serious issues, which is not covered as a result of the UK's prohibitive libel laws, is the funding of terrorism. Several books and many articles have been withdrawn or spiked because of fear of litigation. And this has serious ramifications, not just for freedom of expression, not just for journalism, not just for scholarship, but also for global security.
It's good that England has powerful libel laws to protect people's reputations. Reputation takes a lifetime to build and a moment to destroy. If a foreign national has substantial business connections here, knows many people here, or has a residence here, it's only right that he should be able to protect his reputation here. Defendants, in my view, should either put up or shut up. If a publisher is writing about a matter of public interest, and he can show that he honestly believes what he writes, or he's acting responsibly, or he can prove that the allegations are true, he's got nothing to fear from an English court, and he's certainly not stifled.
Finally, the last time Americans picked a president back in 2004, a digital entertainment company based in California made a real splash with an animated video. The company was called Jib Jab. You might remember the video they created. It turned Woody Guthrie's folk classic, This Land Is Your Land, into a parody of the two presidential candidates. It became and remains one of the biggest viral video hits of all time. Well, the Jib Jab people are back, parodying the 2008 race for the White House and showing all the pretenders out there on the web that they remain the masters of the art. It's Goodbye Woody Guthrie, Hello Bob Dylan in our internet video of the week. We'll see you next time at The Listening Post.
Come gather round Dick Condit, Scooter and Rove. It's time to get packing. We must hit the road, but there's war and recession and bad mortgage loans.
And our legacy needs saving.
So forget he's a jackass who's liberally prone. Oh, it's time for some campaigning.
Old party friends, time to say au revoir. We failed to extinguish Barack's rising star. I'll be back in 4 years, heck, it ain't all that far.
Oh, it's time for some campaigning. Gather conservatives, lend me a hand. Unless you want this liberal Boston command. I spent years in a rat hole in North Vietnam. Now the jihad needs containing.
Gosh, I'm so tired of divisive exchange, and I got one or two things to say about change, like the change we must change to the change we hold dear. I really like change, have I made myself clear?
We spend billions of dollars to make our points clear, to get you to step up and cast your vote.